strategy. The next slide, please. I had also mentioned that this engagement is not maybe just at a level of bringing, women together in a workshop, but we are also going, down to the communities to have these focus group discussions. The group that you see on the far left is a group that was engaged on indigenous knowledge. So we are really trying to widen our scope so that these consultations do not just limit themselves to a certain grouping of people. Next slide, please. The other thing also worth mentioning is that the way we are implementing the GBF Early Action Support project, the one that is assisting us to start to prepare, for the alignment of our targets, we are going to engage consultants for policy analysis, for monitoring systems. In our clause, in the terms of references that we advertised to the consultants, we actually put a clause that actually said women are encouraged to apply, and that is going to be an added advantage. So that is something that we also wanted to mention. We are at the moment in the procurement process of these consultants, and we believe that at least women are going to be encouraged to apply. It will be an advantage to have, I think, consultants that are also women, because in that way they are going to bring, the women issues, the gender issues along in the discussion. Next slide, please. Yeah, also something worth mentioning is that we have also been having these focused group discussions with youth groups. As I mentioned, we have a network of youth that are doing biodiversity issues. And so, as we are trying to align our targets, we have been having these focused group discussions with them to look at the targets, to look at what are the elements that they think are missing, so that at the end of the day, when we really start setting our targets, we have issues of these young people along with us. The next slide, please. Yeah, that was supposed to be my last slide. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Moawi, and thank you for sharing the experience of Malawi. You are really doing so many things and so many actions. And I have some comments, and I will share it in the end. And this is just a quick reminder if you have any comments or questions. And we are going to have some or few minutes to share it. And also for those who are joining us online, please drop your comments or your question in the chat box. Thank you so much. I will move to our next speaker from Canada. We have Solomon Bouchard. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and a huge thanks to the Women Caucus and the co-organizer for inviting us to this side event. We're happy to share our experience, but we also really welcome the other experience that have been shared by other panelists. This is really great. Thank you. Just to note, perhaps the context that we're here, and some of the panelists have noted it. We know that women around the world, but also in Canada, experience the effect of environmental issues, including biodiversity loss, but also climate change in a more intensive way, but yet they're underrepresented in our decision-making processes. So this is all something that we need to consider when we develop our NBSAP. I'll start a little bit about the policies and framework legislation in Canada that enables us to develop a gender responsive NBSAP. So first, in Canada, gender equality rights are included in our legislation, so in the Charter of Rights and Freedom, and as part of our Constitution, but also in the Canadian Gender Budgetary Act. So these are kind of framework that enables us to work in this context. But these rights are also promoted through legal instruments such as the gender-based analysis. So this is a tool that is being used widely in Canada when we develop policy, laws, program, and initiative. And really the purpose of this tool is to ensure that our public policies, including our NBSAP, are informed through an intersectional lens. So it pushes us, policymakers, to evaluate women, girls, and gender diverse people may experience policies or processes in a different way. So it's looking at this intersectional approach. So our NBSAP obviously will go through this tool to understand who will be affected by our NBSAP. And it's meant to mitigate social barrier and accessing benefit and benefiting from the action that will be taken. So these are the tools, mechanism that we have in place. I wanted to also talk about some of the action that our NBSAP will build on. And an example that I'd like to share with you is our Feminist International Assistant Policy, which essentially Canada is committed that 95% of its bilateral international development assistance will advance gender equality. So there's a specific portion of this that will be targeted towards achieving concrete results for gender equality. So that's just one action that I wanted to note here. Of course, our NBSAP will build on other action, but we understand that more work is needed to understand how existing efforts and responsive approach can directly contribute to biodiversity programs and to meet Target 23. So just to conclude, in order to make effort on gender equality, we need to raise awareness, we need stakeholder engagement, and we need better monitoring and evaluation. And in this vein, I just want to thank again the organizer for helping raising awareness and best practices among us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Solomon. Thank you for sharing the experience of Canada to enhance the gender responsiveness in the NBSAPs. And as always, we say we need more work, we need more actions. Yes, and thank you so much for raising this. I will wrap up this discussion with Christina Igintier, our colleague from CVD Women's Caucus, and also a representative of the WWF International. I would like to ask you, Christina, to share with us some key, some guidance, some tools to develop the gender responsiveness within the NBSAPs. Yes, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima. Thank you, the Women Caucus, and everybody who is here, and the panelists, of course. And I will be brief and maybe add a couple of points from a NGO perspective, and in terms of what could be also our responsibilities in terms of being part and realizing whole of society in this particular issue, advancing gender equality and so on. We know that Target 23 and the global gender plan of action were historical achievement, but actions need to follow up on commitments. We are very aware, and I think what we heard just now about the great examples of how NBSAPs gender equality is being mainstream in NBSAPs, and there is a lot of attention from champion countries that really showcasing how to best do this is important, but many other countries have to follow. And we have a role in supporting this movement or these efforts. I think the issue is around building mutual capacity, more in the sense of understanding and knowledge, and how to best contextualize. Domesticate was a word that was used just earlier from Malawi, in order to also be, as Milka expressed at the beginning, culturally appropriate in actions and practices and policies that might be reinforced, strengthened in order to ensure gender mainstreaming. I think there is a lot to be done also in terms of the capacity of civil society organization to increase their roles and effectiveness as partners to governments and other stakeholders on this journey. We know through a notification last year from the Secretariat when there was a request for submissions of views and information on the existing tools and guidance that can support the implementation of the GBF. The Women Caucus submitted on focusing especially on gender equality, whole of society, and human rights-based approach. And that's interesting that, first of all, there's a huge array of available resources and tools. And what might still be missing, if I may say so, is a nice place somewhere on a website where you can actually easily access in multiple languages these tools and guidance. It would be very helpful. There are things like transformative approaches to strengthen women's land and resource rights, for example, available on food system, on participation in decision-making and participation, which is, as we know, the key points in the gender plan of action. There is also a CBD technical series number 49 on guidelines for mainstreaming gender into national biodiversity strategies and action plans, and that's from 2010, so Nagoya times. But so everything is, not everything, but most is there. How can we best use and support parties in the efforts? It's good to say also that the human rights and equity approach and the need for more guidance on those aspects of the global GBF were recognized. We had discussions with the SAPs and SBI on this. And this is obvious because the framing around human rights-based approach were particularly strong, and having a target on gender equality was historic. But these tools and guidance are available, and one additional thought would be that regional centers could also play an important role to ensure that contextualization, and also continued documentation, case studies, successful initiative, both at practice and policy levels. There are many examples. How can we all learn and amplify and help institutionalize these good practices? It's interesting, for example, it was mentioned by Canada. Many countries, we have gender responsive budgets and policies around that. And that is one good example that could be further amplified, not just for the implementation of the GBF, but also a broader context of for advancing gender equality. There is also a small tool that will be shortly made available, developed by the Women for Biodiversity, a member of the CBD Women Caucus, on advancing gender equality in the implementation of the GBF. So again, a lot is there. How can we make use of it? But how can all these resources be made available in an easy, timely, and accessible way to enable women and girls to be part of the plan? And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina, for sharing this guidance. This is really invaluable tools. And I will move to the attendees. If you have any questions or comments to our speakers, the floor is yours. And also, if you we have a question and also comments from our attendees who are joining us online. So please, if you have any questions or comments to our attendees, yes. I will pick 3 questions since we don't have any time. The time is very tight. And thank you so much.
I'm Juana Vera from Global Forest Coalition. So I have a question for our colleagues from Colombia. Maybe I will tell in Spanish. Muchas gracias por vuestra presentación. Realmente estoy muy impresionada con el esfuerzo que está haciendo el actual gobierno, el ministerio, para incluir los temas de género, ¿no? Mi pregunta es que Global Forest Coalition trabaja con un número de organizaciones de la sociedad civil en Colombia y nosotros estamos trabajando también con ellos cómo participar activamente en la COP16. Cómo también traer las voces allá, sobre todo de las mujeres indígenas de la Amazonía, ¿no? Y de los pueblos indígenas a la COP16. Entonces, mi pregunta. Sorry, it seems the battery was low. Entonces, ¿cómo podríamos hacer el link, ¿no? Con ustedes que están ahora trabajando para la COP, hacia la COP, para que también para poder hacer notable, visible el esfuerzo que están haciendo estas organizaciones y contribuir también al esfuerzo que ustedes están haciendo? Gracias.
We will move to our online attendees. We have a question from Karina. Please, Karina, can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the presentations. Can everyone hear me? Yes, am I audible?
Hello, Karina. We
Hello?
can't hear you properly.
You cannot. Can you hear me now?
Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
No, not
No.
yet. Just give me just a few moments to fix this problem. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we will take, sorry, Karina, I will be back to you in a few minutes to just fix the problem of the voice here in the room. I will move to the second question from the attendees. We have to, okay. I will start with the first one. Yes, Please take the floor. Sorry. Please highlight your name first, then
Hello,
ask.
can you hear me? Thank you very much. My name is Suk Vilavong from Laos. Very pleased to hear from the meeting. We are now in the process of reviewing and updating NBSAP, and we are going to include women's role in that. In Laos, we have Lao Women's Union, and their role have been mainstreamed in many strategies, many work. NBSAP is gonna include that as well. Is remain the challenges for us because we are still in doubt how. So my question is, if you may or suggest me how can we find the guideline? The guideline, how can we mainstream women in NBSAP, or a good example that has already been done in NBSAP. In order that we are going to study and we are going to use it as example. When I go home, my team and I are going to continue working on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for providing your questions. I will take another last one question from our attendees. I will go to the men from men's perspectives, so to provide us with question or comments. Thank you. And sorry for the others. We have another question, and because of the time is very tight. Sorry for this. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. En fait, je suis Alain de la République démocratique du Congo. Pour moi, ce n'est pas une question, mais plus un commentaire. Parce que j'ai bien suivi toutes les présentations qui sont vraiment bonnes, mais il y a une question qui reste toujours, celle qui cherche à comprendre pourquoi la situation des femmes dans beaucoup de pays ne change pas. Et pour le cas de mon pays, qui est la République démocratique du Congo, moi, j'ai comme l'impression que certains gouvernements utilisent les genres comme un prétexte politique, prouver juste à l'espace du monde que oui, nous prenons en compte les questions genre, mais quand vous essayez d'analyser, vous trouvez réellement qu'on n'est pas encore à ce niveau. C'est ainsi que je viens de voir qu'il y a quand même quelques modèles. Lorsqu'on prend les Malawi, parce qu'il y avait une question avant, dans la première présentation, où on disait comment est-ce possible qu'on peut être dans des questions de biodiversité, mais on ne sait pas montrer quel est l'apport de la femme et quels sont ses besoins. Et cela m'a amené à comprendre qu'il y a encore beaucoup de choses à faire dans le sens de dire à nos gouvernements, si réellement ils veulent intégrer les genres, comme les genres est considéré comme un terme transversal, c'est sérieux ou c'est responsable que chaque ministère puisse avoir au moins un point focal pour permettre à ce que les questions liées au genre, afin que ces questions soient prises en compte. Et aussi, ensemble, essayons de mettre une stratégie pour que le Canada soit aussi pour nous un modèle. Parce qu'il y a des leçons, chaque fois qu'on nous dit on doit tirer des leçons. Et on a compris que pour bien intégrer les genres, la budgétisation a un rôle à jouer. Si l'État n'arrive pas à donner de l'argent pour cette question, même si nous allons nous battre, et si nous ne produisons pas des études pour montrer les niveaux et la situation de la femme, on ne sera pas à mesure de changer quelque chose. J'ai fini, mais je vous demande de nous donner une stratégie pour qu'on ne puisse pas revenir sur la même chose chaque jour. Merci.
Thank you so much. I was hearing the interpretation. I'm sorry for that. I will just take a question from the online attendees. So the question from Karina So she is asking Malawi speaker, Miyawi, about to provide some example of gender consideration that are being included in the NBSAPs revision process. And yes, please. So the floor for the speakers now to answer the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. Creo que la voy a responder en español, la pregunta suya. En este momento estamos trabajando junto con el Women Caucus y la Secretaría del CBD para identificar las diferentes actividades previas a la COP y durante la COP que van a estar incorporando a las mujeres y esta visión de género que tiene el marco global. Hay muchas ideas, creo que ustedes ya han oído las ideas que se han discutido entre el caucus y por supuesto en Colombia también hay otras ideas interesantes para poder mostrar la situación de las mujeres y como decíamos ahora, no solo las mujeres de las ciudades, sino sobre todo las mujeres que están en los ecosistemas estratégicos, que son custodias de la biodiversidad, que permiten hacer un uso sostenible de la biodiversidad, que se alimentan, se curan y viven de la biodiversidad. Eso es lo que queremos mostrar. Y eso es lo que quisiéramos compartir, además, con todas las mujeres del mundo que nos visiten en Cali. Y tal vez esto entonces es una invitación para que las ideas que tengan pues las puedan canalizar a través del caucus y podamos, junto con la Secretaría, tener una propuesta muy inclusiva, pero también muy creativa. Nuestra ministra Susana Muhammad nos ha encargado buscar ideas muy creativas, muy sensibles, que lleguen al corazón, que lleguen al sentimiento que nos permita realmente cambiar la trayectoria de las mujeres. Gracias.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for answering this question. I will move to Mwai to provide some example on gender consideration. And I'm sorry, but we still have time for further comments and discussions. Please be very concise because of the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm not too sure if I will answer the question the way the one who asked it wants, but I wanted to mention that I think our observation is that many times when we are looking at gender considerations, as governments, we usually don't widen our scope that much. That usually when we are talking about women engagement, we're just talking about a certain small group of women that maybe we invited to a workshop. But for us, I think we are saying, let us go down, to the communities. In one of the slides, I showed an example of where, we're having these focus group discussions, because it is from these discussions that the real, biodiversity issues, that they come in. Women are usually in most parts of Africa, and Malawi is not an exception, are the ones that are really interacting with biodiversity. They are the ones that, fetch firewood. They are the ones that, so they benefit a lot, but at the same time, women are also the ones at the center of, using a lot of ecosystem services, and therefore, these are the women that we need to reach out to. Thank you.
Thank you so much for answering this question. And we have to hand over to NBSAP's accelerator, partnership with Catherine Madden. Yes, I will give her a hand.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I've been asked to think a little bit about what happens after NBSAPs have been revised and how do we move on with the implementation questions. So good afternoon, everyone, and let's try and spend a little bit of time exploring this. Great. So just to share a couple of slides with you to speed through the introduction, I wanted to start by telling you a little bit about the NBSAP Accelerator Partnership and a bit of a new kid on the block when it comes to the gender discussions. And so really we're here today to get some advice and get some guidance on how we move forward as an initiative in this area. Next slide, please. Next slide. We'll do a quick overview of the NBSAP Accelerator Partnership, and then if it's okay, just to break out into some discussion groups and hear your perspective and get your guidance on how we move forward. So the NBSAP Accelerator Partnership, a country-led initiative to accelerate the implementation of NBSAPs, raise ambition to increase action. Our overall goals really to think about implementation, build capacity, facilitate access, to really facilitate peer-to-peer learning, and to really keep and elevate NBSAPs on the National Development Planning agenda. Just in terms of a little bit of history, we have one of the leaders of the NBSAP in the room today from Colombia, who started this initiative and together with Germany have really spearheaded it. We now have a larger number of countries supporting us, but just to share the leadership, but also the implementing partners, that's UNDP, UNEP and CBD, with financial support from a number of different countries in the bottom corner. So our members are on the screen here, started I think with about 15, 16 and now it's grown. A couple of these are still pending final paperwork, but the membership is increasing both from countries and from institutional partners. In terms of our work program, I'm whizzing through these just so you get an overview and a sense of what we're doing. Our overall work program has 4 components. The first in the bottom right-hand corner is really enabling countries via technical support. And this is through a number of different initiatives, including our facilitator program.
Sorry, Catherine, just can you
fast?
please? Yes, too
Sure,
fast
no
for
problem.
the interpretation. Thank you.
We have a matchmaking component. We have an advocacy component, elevating the political importance of NBSAPs, and a knowledge component, which is supporting the dialogue, outreach, and knowledge exchange. In terms of our in-country support, this is available to some of our members, and this is our current portfolio, working with 8 countries through our GIZ technical support. And I'm just about to start the recruitment of our ICI facilitators in 12 countries, and we'll be looking for additional 12 countries later on this year. And the facilitators, we can tell you more about them, but essentially there to support countries with the implementation of their NBSAPs. The next slide just basically tries to highlight our matchmaking service, which we are just designing right now. On the one hand, we have our country demands, technical and financial requirements. And on the right-hand side, we have our suppliers and funders. And these come together through our matchmaking facility, where we're trying to fast track support to countries within our membership. Next slide. Our guiding principles are tenfold, and these really underpin the commitment from our members. And critically, these include gender responsive approaches and also to respect human rights, as highlighted in number 10. I'm going to move on now to our work where we've been starting to think about mainstreaming gender responsive NBSAPs. And this is just flagging that we know we're joining a journey that's been ongoing for the last 20 years and really trying to think about how do we effectively join that journey, and specifically looking at targets 22 and 23 and thinking about the gender plan of action. We did a little bit of research over the last 3 months, talking to a number of our country members. We've been talking to different organizations and initiatives and doing some secondary research. And none of the findings will be new to you. Just highlighting that gender equality, biodiversity loss, and environmental degradation are clearly interconnected. And all three of these are wicked problems in that there is no obvious one solution, and there's multiple drivers for this, and hopefully multiple solutions. There are some bright spots. I think we've heard quite a few of those today from Kenya, from Colombia, and from Malawi. But you know, there are some bright spots, but this still is a fragmented topic, and there's plenty of work to be done. We need to take a systemic approach to change, and that there's no one size fits all, and ownership is critical for progress. So we're moving on in our work with basically 6 key principles to underpin how we're moving forward in the first step of our approach, which is to use the GBF Gender Action Plan as a framework to enable individual country approaches to our work. We're looking at the request of some of our countries to build institutional capacity and to co-identify problems and solutions. The idea is that what type of intervention can we make as an accelerator? We will not be running projects as an accelerator. We are a coordinator, we are an enabler, but how do we enable that long-term implementation? And I think, as Kenya said right at the beginning, actually move into implementation beyond the rhetoric of this space. And then we also need to think about capturing and sharing lessons for broader adoption. So our overall ambition here is to accelerate systemic change in gender equality, and we're starting to look at one initial project in this space. So we're talking to a couple of donors about this, and the overall objective is to enhance institutional capacities for implementing gender responsive NBSAPs. The first step is the design process, bringing 5 countries together, 2 or 3 representatives, including the CBD gender focal point, together to do that design and to understand what systemic tools and approaches and tools are already there. So building on Christina's point about utilizing what is there and really starting to bring that together. And then to send these teams back out and to do an engagement with multiple stakeholders to understand what are the key issues. And maybe it's about responsiveness in one country, participation in another. Maybe it's about dialogue in another, to really understand where the countries are at, and then to go through a co-creation process to identify solutions. This is a very short-term project. It's lasting only 18 months. And so the idea is that these solutions come back through the NBSAP Accelerator matchmaking process. The idea is that issues are identified, articulated, and brought through the process so that we can help identify longer-term solutions for each project. So our question for you today, and we're going to break up into groups just for 15 minutes, if you'll indulge us, is to really ask you is, how do we identify the countries that we're going to be working in? Okay. Some have suggested that we should be working with the leaders because we've only got 18 months to do this. And therefore we need to work with the leaders in order to have some countries that really shine for others to follow. Others have said, you need to have maximum impact here. Work with those who are just at the beginning of this journey. Others have said, well, who's expressed the most interest? Well, who's got their gender plan of action in place? You know, what should the focus be? So our question for you today is, how can you help us with identifying the criteria for the countries that we should be working in, and also to start thinking beyond this initial project that we'll be starting, how the NBSAP Accelerator Partnership should be working on gender. We've already had quite a lot of inputs from the speakers already, which we've been taking note of and we'll be drawing in, but how to further that conversation. So I hope the instructions are clear. We do have a facilitator for each group. So I'm going to suggest, Baron, if you could maybe take this group here. And maybe there's a group over there in the corner Alexandra will come over to, and maybe I'll go with the third group here, and we'll just have a huddle and a 15-minute conversation. Romain is going to take the group online and continue the conversation. So the question is, where should we work and what criteria should we be using, both on this project and more broadly as we move forward with the NBSAP Accelerator Partnership? Okay.
Yes, it's clear. Thank you so much, Catherine, for the insightful presentation. And also, I would love to see the groups, diverse group with parties NGOs, other stakeholders, so that we have different perspectives. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Hi everyone online, can you hear me? Please, as we have an issue with the sound, please share your SO and your IDs on that questions in the chat directly. You have 10 minutes remaining, and we were able to join those IDs and so with the people in the room. So when is Zoom here? People are discussing here, and I'm supposed to manage people on that. The thing is, if I speak through here or through here, you hear. The Zoom is that. Can you get that for a while? I think it has to be for 5 minutes. Then another machine that is, it's not contribution, it's the sound to be cut 5 minutes. I don't know if it's possible. You want to go more like, yes, without the. But without them, Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
All right, sorry, we had issued. But please feel free to elaborate in the chat. I think it would be easier in that way. I have seen the comment of our colleague from Ivory Coast, if I'm not mistaken. Feel free to elaborate a bit more the work that you are undertaking at the national level based on the proposed question. Mrs. Fatou Ndiaye from Senegal, please feel free to elaborate as well your work on gender integration into NBSAP at the national level. Thank you, Mrs. Caroline, for your comment in the chat. Can you maybe give a detail about where you are coming from? Which country? Thank you.
I'm from Kenya.
Right, so thank you. Just to provide contextualization to what you were saying. Thank you. So far we have only three comments, if I'm not mistaken. Mrs. Valentine, I don't know if others are online as well. Feel free to share your thought and insight on the chat for us to gather more information and feedback on that question. Thank you. Two to 3 minutes are remaining. I've seen the comments of Shruti Ajit from India. Thank you for your comments, and just the one as well of Dorothy. And please, everyone, feel free to use those 2 or 3 minutes to provide additional comments and feedback. Thank you.
Alexandra. I'm just kidding. That's what I'm doing now. Yeah, I'm working on it. Okay, I think you can stay where you are. Let's save time. I think people just sit where you are. I'm going to ask each group to make 1 point. Only 1 point or 2 points. And if the first group make 1 point, the second group can't repeat that point, okay? Okay, I'm going to ask you to be respectful of your colleagues and listen to the feedback, please. I'm going to ask the group I was in. You can say who you are, that would be great.
Thank you. My name is Cecilia Givega. I am also a member of the Women Caucus. I also practice law here in Kenya. Our group had many points, very many, but I was told to limit myself. So the one criteria would be to work with those countries that already have frameworks and have made progress so that we can have a place from which we can learn, but at the same time also put into consideration that the ones which have not started and the ones which are struggling could also serve as a place from where we can enhance action. And then we also have the countries that we also need to have an exclusionary criteria so that we make sure we have countries that are also in line with the broader agenda of gender mainstreaming and gender inclusion. Thank you.
Clap. I've been working in this business a long time, and feedback's really hard to do short and well, and I think that was a brilliant example. Second group, please.
Hello, hi. We had a very engaging discussion, and everybody.
Who are you?
We are the Power Rangers. Oh, sorry. I am Alexandra Said. I'm the country engagement coordinator for the NBSAP Accelerated Partnership, but today I am just a listener. So basically, we discussed back and forth, but I think to consolidate everything is that, of course, it's important to help those that need the help, but we also must have certain criteria. So the criteria should be that we focus on those countries that have really critical biodiversity areas, while also intersecting with those that have gender gaps and need the support. I think that's a good way to frame it, although we had other suggestions as well. I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you.
Great feedback. Thanks, Alexandra. And we also had that same comment here. Okay, Marlene, over to your the last group.
Thank you. No, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you for the reflections. We have been talking about how we can identify countries that are not right now supported by the NBSAP Accelerator, but are important for these gender discussions and analysis. And of course, probably those additional countries can share experiences with the NBSAP Accelerator countries. Of course, is very important to have countries with different kinds of levels to engage in the gender issues, but also with the important lessons learned to share with others. And of course, countries that can have very important inputs from different ecosystems, because we want to see women engage with biodiversity from the cities, but also from the rural areas, and in the rural areas, coastal areas, but also other ecosystems. And I think this is my friend is gonna be compliment. Okay, no? Right. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for all your feedback. It's really useful, and we'll build that into the project. I just hope that we can work in more than 5 countries, because it will allow us to really respond to all of the recommended criteria. But I just ask maybe the Women's Caucus if we could be invited back sometime in the future to show where we get to. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for this engaging and insightful workshop. And thank you so much for all the groups. And we are, our side events comes to the end. I will move to Oliver. Oliver, please introduce yourself first, and please give us some key closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much. Very interesting side event, and I think it's thank you for inviting me to close the side event. I just want to say, do it a little bit differently. Just give you a speech, but say what has changed since the adoption of the GPA. In 2016, there was a study that was done to actually see how gender is reflected in NBSAP. Some number, 7% of NBSAP, we're talking about 174 submission of NBSAP, included goals and objective on gender. 14% included guiding principle on gender. And a quarter of these NBSAPs, just a quarter, 174 countries, just a quarter had specific activities. 2016. That's before, of course, the adoption of the Gender Plan of Action, the GBF. So you can see those numbers, how they are reflected. What has changed is that now we have the Gender Plan of Action, but we also have a target on biodiversity, on gender. So what I did is that I looked at, I'm not going to name the countries, but I looked at the last submissions of NBSAPs in May, that is this month, and April. And the interesting part is that the sample that I looked at, 4 submissions, we had submissions that I have now indicators and specific activity with also having guiding principles and goals. So what it means is that we're moving in the right direction. So this number needs to increase, obviously, in the revise and update of new NBSAPs. I'd like to close off by saying that I heard some discussions as regards to guidance. Guidance, you have it in the GPA. You have some specific text in the GPA, the Gender Plan of Action, that actually asks you to do certain things, to look at not only including gender into NBSAPs, because that's not enough. Keywords are just not enough, but you have also specific activities, include gender-specific indicators, develop, deploy data, tools, and other instruments to, for example, address issues of gender-based violence. This is important because this is very specific. It has never been this specific in the previous strategic plan. Finally, guidance to who is going to actually help you implement the NBSAPs accelerator that we partner with. When you're looking at terms of criteria, perhaps look at a mix of countries. Countries that have advanced, pair them with countries that are making steps. But perhaps that could work in terms of like having a ripple effect and see what other activities can, or other support can actually amplify what you're doing. So finally, COP16 is around the corner. Let's make it a gender COP. So we look forward to welcoming you to a Gender Day. Colombia, I'm looking at you. And I don't think it's a hard sell. So we thank you very much for your support, and I look forward to continuing discussions with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Oliver, and thank you for this exciting announcement about the Gender Day. We are really excited about the COP in Cali. So I will wrap up our side event with our beloved coordinator, Amelia. Amelia, please take the floor. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll be super brief. I just want to thank everyone for being here. It's really heartwarming to see that there's a lot of interest and support for the gender discussions, and it's not just 2-3 people pushing for this. More invitations will come forward from the Women's Caucus. So please, if you haven't registered to the event, just give us your contact details and we can provide more information. After this, see you in Colombia, but there are many other things that have to happen before. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much, Amelia, and thank you. And personally, thank you so much for joining today and for your effective and for your insightful comments, your discussion, everything. And I would like to thank the attendees online for those who are joining us online and our esteemed speakers. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation and for joining us. Thank you so much. And see you in Cali. Have a good day. Thank you. Sorry, just a small announcement. Can we have a group photo right now? Thank you so much.